Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this morning. Today, Michael Dyer, who is one of the cloud solutions developers here at Leaf, is going to give you a bit of an overview and a demo of Power BI. At the moment, it's even more important than ever to really make use of the data that your business holds so you can make fast and informed decisions and really push your business forward using that data. So I'm going to pass over to Michael now. If anyone has any questions, if you can just pop them in the live event question and answer at the side there, and Michael will go through them at the end. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rachel. So basically, I'm just going to go through a little overview of Power BI in terms of what you can do with it, what various options there are for security, licensing, all of that. I'm going to start with a report demo and then basically work my way through this agenda. So one thing to note is the session will be recorded. So if you need to drop out for whatever point to go to another meeting, drop me a wee email or email hello@leaf-it.com and we can arrange the recording being sent out to you. So no issues there. Or alternatively, if you have other members of your team that you say, oh, this might be useful for them, by all means, drop us an email and we'll get that shared out to them as well. So just to make a start, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of a general sort of report for starters. So I've got a report here sort of to set the scene in terms of what it is. So this is this fictional company, Ansoft, whereby they've got sales data for all the products that they sell. So they sell some of their own products and they also sell other manufacturers' products across different regions, basically. So this data set is all their sales data and units sold, that sort of thing, across the various regions. So if I, first of all, go into sales overview here, get a quick sort of look, high level of what my sort of sales are trending as. So at the top here, I've got revenue by country. So each of these wee bubbles corresponds to revenue. So they're scaled by size. So obviously USA is the highest, Europe less so, Australia probably the second highest. And if I want to, explore that detail further, I can drill into individual bubbles and get per state data. So if you've got a good data set whereby you capture, so you have a lot of accounts, whereby you capture your sales figure and that relates to a specific account where you've got, like, say, a postcode or a latitude and longitude or an address of some sort, that can be very, very useful in terms of getting insights on your data in a sort of geographical sense. So yeah, you can sort of see where your hotspots are for sales, see where maybe you want to maybe invest more in, I suppose. Yeah, so down here I have total revenue by month, just by on a line graph essentially. So drilling down into that, this operates in a hierarchy. So I have year at the top, and then I can drill down into month or quarter or individual days, depending on what you need. So if I drill down all the way down into that, I can say, give me see individual data points per, I think this is per month. Yeah, so that's September 2018, October 2018, November. So I can see the peaks and troughs very, very easily for each individual section. So, or if I wanted to drill down into one specific year, I can only see then 2018 and get the sort of trend, general trend for 2018. If I go up again, on the top right here, I have revenue by geography and product category. So the products that they sell, they're easily separated into various categories. So the categories are mixed, rural, urban, and youth. So see what percentage of how that revenue divides or subdivides easily into individual categories, essentially. And obviously you can see there the USA makes up the vast bulk of the sales, and the rest of them less so. Australia maybe 50% of US, and then the rest of them are really quite small. Down here is revenue by manufacturer. So revenue by manufacturer, largely the same as revenue, just different way of displaying it. The legend is essentially the different manufacturers, and then say the Ansoft one is the top, and that can then be drilled down into in the same way as revenue over here was drilled down into. So you can go in and get it on a per month basis for a particular year or overall generally. On the left hand side here, you'll notice various filters. So it's a bit of a filter pane here. So I can then say I only want to look at, say Japanese sales for Ansoft products for some particular, which one has good data. So this is only all my then visualizations automatically update to reflect what I've selected my filters here. So I can sort of slice and dice that any way I want. So I say if I wanted to look at 2016, 2017, 2018, all my graphs update, and I can then drill down into them from there. So the filters are retained, and then I might not have state data for Japan. So all my filters are retained. I get sort of general total revenue, and then I can drill down into these individually in the same way I could before. So if I go into 2017, I can get the full spread for Japan for this one particular product. So there are basically essentially no sales, very, very small in the first few months, peaks in the summer, and it goes back down again for this individual product. If I go now to sales overview, which is sort of a second tab, so each report can have multiple tabs. You probably wouldn't want to go maybe above perhaps maybe 5 or 6 tabs per report, because it starts to get a wee bit messy, honestly. So same sort of deal. The filter pane is down the left, sort of persists across all of the report, or in this case. And then I've got sort of units by state. So these are so CA, California, New South Wales, Victoria, and then I can also slice and dice that by location or country or year, whatever way you want. This table down here is essentially just a summary of the products. So it's split by, or grouped by product, sorry, with a sum of revenue for the individual whatever the filters are filtering on. So if I select an individual product, it'll then filter all these graphs to just show the general trend of that product in terms of units sold rather than revenue. So this one is 3,950 units sold, this particular product in the USA, and then that's the breakdown by year and by state. And you can sort of just filter that whatever way you want. And this sort of column here is formatted on units sold. So it's sort of a linear scale whereby the lower values are highlighted in red and the sort of more positive values are in green. So you can get a quick overview there, which ones stand out in terms of where maybe you need to focus more sales, or just general insights. Over here on the right, it's a pretty standard bar chart. Legend highlights the different categories, but as before, it's very similar to the one on the previous page, but it's looking at units sold rather than revenue. And then you've got the line graph is then is displaying units. Sorry, it is displaying revenue as well. Bar graph is revenue and the line is units. So in 2013, we were selling we're making quite a lot of revenue, but comparatively not very many units sold. So there's a lot of high value products sold, sort of in comparison to units. So all the filters are sort of interactive. So as you sort of click through them all, it's very, very snappy in terms of how the other filters update. So as the filters update, I can just very, very quickly explore my data. If I move on then to the next page in this report. So this is a visual I like personally. It's known as a decomposition tree. So you provide a measure or a summation of, say, something like revenue. So, and then you can sort of break that, sort of explore that and see how it breaks down. So this revenue here, I've got 2.9 billion for the total sales for the past, like, whatever, how many years it was. And then I can say I want to see that by, how does that split by country? So that then expands that by country. And if I want to maybe drill down maybe into Australia, I want to say, let me see the biggest manufacturer in Australia. And then I want to look into one of maybe our competitors' products. I select category, and then maybe product, and just, oh, this product is interesting. I want to learn more about that, and I see which city that is selling in most commonly in Australia, which would be Sydney. And then if I, by extension, if I want to then switch to Japan, it'll remember this path, and then it'll tell me at the end which city is most, this particular product is most popular in for this manufacturer. I can't navigate to the other one. 2 seconds. There we go. So this is another visual. It's sort of a scatter plot. So it's revenue by units. So revenue by units obviously correlate very highly. So generally speaking, you'd probably have sort of an upward trajectory, sort of move along the center barrier here. But what is interesting with this report is sort of the play axis, so you can sort of view it over time. So if I click this play button here, you can see sort of how the sales increase, decrease, and move around as the years progress. And if I was to say, look at productivity, this productivity increased from 2013, it sort of progressed through all the way up through 2018, and not doubled, but nearly doubled its units, but it comparatively didn't make as much revenue. So I can then look at something like extreme product category, whereby it's a pretty linear 1-for-1. As units increase, revenue increases. And then, so that's maybe a more profitable category. Moderation, this category is, so it hasn't increased very much in units, but it has considerably increased in revenue. So we're only shipping another, what, 50,000 units, but we've more than doubled the revenue, or roughly doubled the revenue. And then obviously that can be drilled down and restricted by specific manufacturers and all the rest of it, the same way any other report could be. So I want to look at maybe Ansoft and then one of these other, maybe two other manufacturers, and see how this sort of changes. So for these particular 3 manufacturers, moderation is now very, very high on revenue, and then productivity is a lot lower, comparatively speaking, to what we were looking at earlier. I can also look at individual months. So if I wanted to compare, for instance, January's, I could then say only show me, you know, January 2019 and then January 2018, for instance. One more interesting, oh, sorry, 2 more, sorry, I've got. So this is sort of an AI-powered visual, and whereby it'll automatically analyze the visualizations you have on a given page, and it'll summarize them for you automatically. So you'll get a sort of general summation of what your data is telling you. So maybe at a glance, you can just read it and say, oh, revenue is trending up here, it's going down here, this whatever manufacturer accounted for whatever percentage of revenue. And these can be customized in terms of what you wanted to get out of it, essentially. So if you wanted to get a very specific measure of your data, you can have that generate itself in just in text format for you automatically. So anytime you reload the page, it'll recalculate that summary for you, so you don't have to go in and even bother delving into the data necessarily. You can just sort of get it summarized for you, very high level, if you wanted to provide that to management or whatever, just in terms of an email, rather than sort of sending them a report, you could just paste them that. And then obviously that, as with anything else, is affected by filters, and that will all update as and when you change your filter. So I changed this to Canada. It'll update all this information automatically, and if specific years, etc., etc. One last sort of visualization idea is Q&A. So if you've got Q&A kind of relies on a very clean data model. So if you've got very nice clean data and everything's nicely organized, you can do a lot with Q&A, whereby you can ask natural language questions. So say I want to see total sales, if I could type, total sales by country as a pie chart. Lose my Canada filter. That'll then quickly generate me a quick report whereby, or quick visualization about a basic query about what you wanted to know, or if I wanted to know total sales in 2018, give me a number. So yeah, very powerful if you have a clean data model Q&A. It's very easy to use, and you can set up sort of terms and synonyms. So instead of sales, you could say, I want, maybe you want revenue or sales to be synonyms in the data model, whereby it, if sort of a user was to type revenue, it would then interpret that as sales in the data model, where in the back end it's actually labeled as sales. The system's smart enough to then say, oh, this person's talking about revenue, they're actually talking about you know, the same thing. Okay, so if I go back to my PowerPoint, so in terms of sort of data sources, really you can use basically anything. If you've got data somewhere that you don't really know what to do with, it's really very hard to report on. Typically Power BI is a good choice. So most common data sources, Dynamics, SharePoint, static Excel CSV files, SQL servers, various online services, or marketing tools such as MailChimp, or you can even embed it or get Twitter data and engagement stuff out of it, out of Twitter's APIs. Or if you've got some weird system that you use, it's also possible to create custom connectors that allow you to connect to your data source, even if there's an out of the box connector for Power BI. You can make your own, or we could make it for you. You know, and it's a good thing to note that multiple data sources can be combined and manipulated as part of the same report. So, for instance, if I have a static Excel file sitting on a server, I have a list in SharePoint, and I have a SQL server sitting on some on-premise server somewhere. Those can all be combined and you know, manipulated, and then all reported on as part of the same data source, essentially. So you wouldn't then have to go and do 3 separate reports. You could all do it within one, set it up once, set up the refresh, and you're away. So basically everything is done within all the customization or setup of the report and sort of setup of your data sources is all done within Power BI Desktop. So Power BI Desktop is basically where you design it all. It's where you define your relationships, set up everything, essentially. The good thing about Power BI Desktop is it's free. So we'll talk more about licensing later, but Power BI Desktop is completely free. You can start exploring your data, get various insights on it, and get the full-fledged experience locally, and see if, you know, Power BI is for you, essentially. So if I show you Power BI Desktop quickly, so this is sort of the desktop environment, or the local Power BI desktop environment. So this is the same report you saw earlier. I've got my various tabs along the bottom, my tables on the right, visualization options. If I explore my data model, I've got my relationships, so everything linking to a date table, geography with zip codes, product table, manufacturer table related to the product table, and then I can explore the individual rows in that data. So there are 7 million sales rows in this data set, which is, well, not absurdly large, it's reasonably large. And you can see how quick, you saw previously, once that report is published to the server, it all runs on Microsoft servers, and its performance is generally pretty good. It's not, it can handle very, very large data sets, is probably the key takeaway. As part of your sort of, the first thing you would do with sort of a Power BI report would be to set up your data source. So I'll just show you a couple of the basic out-of-the-box connectors. So there are lots of sort of pre-installed connectors. So if you want to connect to an Excel or like an Oracle database, Access database, SQL Server database, go through the wee wizard, set your credentials, easy peasy, and you can start working away. You can even do things such as scrape web pages. So say for instance, you wanted to report on, I don't know, say football table or Premier League football tables or standings. You could then scrape, say for instance, the BBC website, scrape that HTML table directly from their website and then automatically refresh it, so you could then report on that and, you know, see various movements of teams and all the rest of it. Yeah, so when you import your data, so your data comes as, you know, you can apply various steps to your data. So one of the biggest sort of time constraints with setting up a report is the time it takes to sort of manipulate your data and make it, you know, usable essentially. So a lot of people think they have clean data, but they really don't. So a lot of the time is it's even true internally, or no, you don't realize how dirty your data is until you try to report on it, basically. So what Power BI does is you can apply a various series of steps, which are applied on every refresh. So here I've reordered some columns, changed some data types, added the custom column with a calculation, all easily done. And then anytime you refresh this data set, these steps are applied automatically as part of the refresh. So it's sort of a set once and forget, well, not forget, but set once, then you don't need to worry about it quite so much anymore. So then that can be applied per table, and you can have your data model really quite well defined and clean. So even if it comes out of your, say, your SQL server and it's not perfect, you can then manipulate in Power BI, and then those same manipulations will be applied as well. So just I think I've covered most of the desktop, or general overview of the desktop. So the Power BI service is basically where you publish your reports to. It's browser-based and allows you to do various collaboration things with colleagues, comment on reports, subscribing to reports, posting links in the teams, which we'll cover later. So it's all about sharing. So by default, in your desktop, you can just publish a report and you're away. So once you publish it, there are various workspaces. So workspaces are a collection of reports and data sets. So they can have their own individual permissions. They can have multiple reports per workspace, or you can define everyone in the organization has access to this workspace. People can only view it, people can contribute to it, etc., etc. It's all very prescriptive in terms of permissions. So in this demo workspace I have here, I've got my report you saw a minute ago, I can see when it was last refreshed. The next refresh hasn't been set up because it's a static data set. There's no refresh to do for this particular report. But if I was to open that, I can share that out, whether I want to embed that in sort of SharePoint or whatever, or I want to chat about it in Teams or make a comment on the report. So I can just post a comment. Anyone else consuming that report will see that. Or one of the things, subscribe is also an option. So subscribe will, at a predefined time, send you a email. So the email is essentially just a screenshot, but I mean, having that scheduled and meaning you don't have to go and look for the report even, so it can be really effective. So say you want the latest version of this particular report page to be sent to you every morning at 9 AM. That's something you can set up, and then you can sort of monitor it without even having to even go to Power BI. So the other very key feature about the Power BI service I find is very useful is the chat in Teams functionality. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But generally speaking, the service is just where you manage all your reports, and sort of admins can sort of highlight different bits and pieces, and you can publish them as apps. So I have here all my sort of frequent reports, a lot of internal reports and various featured. So if I want to feature as an admin, I can feature a particular app. An app is essentially just a collection of reports. So here, I could then have multiple reports listed here, and then I could collapse them and expand them and sort of say I had a sales report here, I had an invoicing report here, I had a support ticket report here, and maybe company leave down here. So it's all in one place. I can then distribute that to users easily from there, and allow you to manage, get really granular in terms of who can see what. If I go back to, have I forgotten anything? Yes, we'll talk about this posting links to Teams in a minute. I'm going to show you the Teams integration. Dashboards is the other one. So you can set yourself up a dashboard within the service, and the dashboard, if I go in, let me create one live. So dashboards are created within within the service itself. So a dashboard can have reports, or sorry, visualizations from multiple different reports. So if I want to, add in a specific tile, I want, a visualization or whatever, it can all be added in there, and I can then get a dashboard from all the different reports, all displaying on a single sheet, on a single page that I can then just scroll down through. I have one place I can go to for all the visualizations I care about. So say, for instance, if you had 10 reports, but maybe you only care about one visualization on each of them. So you want to see where your revenue is trending, where maybe your support ticket response time, but the rest of the report you don't really care about. You could then just embed those into a dashboard and then just refresh that from there. So dataset refresh. As I said before, it's kind of, once you set it up, it sort of removes that need for you to spend all that admin time at the end of every month, like combining all your data and maybe it's one particular person in the company who spends 2 days at the end of every month combining all that data just to report on it. So the idea being with the dataset refresh is that your data is updated automatically to the cloud. You set it up to refresh at specific time intervals, or you have say for instance, if you have a direct query, your data set would always be live because you're connecting directly to the data source. So the direct query is basically only supported by certain data sources. So if you say have a SQL server, you can then whenever you update your filter on a report, if you're using the direct query model for dataset refresh, you could that query is then sent directly to the database, and then you get a live response. So there's no whereas if you're updating the dataset multiple times a day, your dataset might be 1 or 2 hours out of date. Whereas with direct query, dataset dependent or data source dependent, you could then get live data from that. You can also update it manually or through different things such as PowerShell, the API, or Power Automate. Incremental refresh allows you to upload a subsection of the data and then just upload refresh only maybe the last 24 hours of new data. So say, for instance, if you had say invoice data, for example, if you had invoice data for the last 10 years, but that refreshing that, because there's so much of it, it takes so long to get refreshed, you can then say only refresh the particular records that were created within the last 24 hours, for instance, something like that. So I'll take you through the scheduled refresh quickly. If I go into, I'll have to go into a different workspace. So I can see for these particular, there's an ops pipeline report here, which was refreshed this morning, and then it's due to refresh tomorrow morning. So if I go into settings and into data sets, this ops pipeline report is set to refresh every morning at 9 AM. So I can add another time here. I can be quite prescriptive. I want it also refresh at 10 AM. And I can add up to 8 refresh times with that particular data set. And then also I can have myself be emailed notifications if for whatever reason the data set fails or the refresh fails. And on the top of every report, you will see, if I switch back to a different workspace, you can see the last updated time for the last time the data was updated. So you're not guessing as to when it was last updated. It's displayed prominently for you, so you can see this was last refreshed yesterday, or this hasn't been refreshed for 2 days, whatever the reason is. You know, you're not in the dark as to how up to date is this data. So it's always displayed prominently for you, so you know you're looking at the most recent version. Row-level security. So row-level security is very, very powerful in terms of allowing users to only see what they're allowed to see. So say, for instance, you had a series of account managers who have various opportunities or revenue or whatever. If you wanted to say each account manager can only access their own sales data, but have it contained within a single report and a single data set, you could do that with row-level security. So in this particular example, I've got 2 roles, so a read role and a US sales only role. So this is filtering on country equals USA. So the way this works is it propagates across the relationships in the data model. So if I'm filtering on country equals USA, that also will, because the geography table is related to the sales table, not directly but indirectly related to the sales table. If I then filter on the geography table, that automatically filters the sales table. So in this case, the person with the US sales only row will only see US sales. And I can sort of demo that to you quickly. So you saw here I'm signed in as myself rather than that previous account. So I'm on this same report, exact same workspace, exact same report, last refresh, same date. I don't have any option here other than USA. There's nothing I can do in here that will allow me to see sales data for other countries. If I zoom out, there's no bubbles. There's nothing anywhere here. I can still get all the other filters, but it'll all be restricted specifically to USA. I can also I can't download the file manually, or it can be restricted that way. So it's very locked down if that's the way you want it. You have one report, one data set, set your row level security for who can see what, and it means you have a single thing to manage rather than having 10 different things to manage, essentially. Also available on mobile, obviously, as everything is these days. Your reports can be they're available on iOS, Android, and they can be viewed in the same format as they are on the browser. So you can have it in this this landscape format, as displayed sort of here in this sort of stock image, or you can have a custom specified or custom tailored layout specifically for mobile. So here I'm looking at the unit sales page of this report, and I have specified that I want to see, when I'm on mobile, I want to see these two visuals with a country filter. So that's obviously, you can set that up whatever way you want. Whatever, if you want to see the fully fledged experience on mobile, it works completely the same way. You can still drill down into data, drill through, filter, cross filter, all works exactly the same way. It just authenticates to the Power BI service using your Office credentials, and all the security works as you would expect, provided you have internet connection, of course. So integration across Office 365. So basically, it's the main integration is with Teams. So there's a new, relatively recent Teams integration. So down here, I've pinned the Power BI app. So what you'll notice is the entire experience that you're familiar with from, or I've showed you previously, from the browser, so it's just Google Chrome, is embedded or can be embedded within Teams. So you have, if you're big into your Teams, you like using Teams, you can then access all your reports directly from Teams without ever having to leave it, essentially. So you don't need to open a browser or whatever. I can then chat in Teams. So the real benefit of this is over comments and subscribe is that it retains the context of what you're looking at. So if I say I've got my row level security enabled here. So obviously the row level security applies regardless of where you're accessing it from. So I can only accept or show US here. So if I want to look at Unsoft products in 2019, I can then hit chat. Whoops, lost my filter. I can then hit chat in Teams, and that'll generate me a URL which I can share to a specific channel. So if I want to share to my solutions team general channel, I can post that there, and then that will create a link to this report, which will then open it for the person receiving it with these filters applied. So if I go to my team's general channel, and here's this link that I've just posted, so I click on that, it'll open me this report with the same filters, so filtered by USA, Ansoft, and 2019. So that's very powerful in terms of, say you find some insight, you want to share that with whatever your rest of your team or management or whatever. Chat and Teams function means you can share it with them with all your filters applied, so they see what you see, but there's no ambiguity there. Oh, you haven't set this filter, you haven't set, you know, no need for back and forth confusion, essentially. The other place it integrates with is obviously integrates easily with is SharePoint. So if I go test SharePoint site, I've got the link here to this report, and this is an older version of this report I think it's going to bring up, but it can be embedded in a SharePoint page. So say you use SharePoint as an intranet, you can embed a report for whatever you want in a SharePoint page, basically. So it's front and center. If you have a SharePoint page where everyone goes to this at the start of the morning to see company news, all the rest of it, it can be embedded there easily enough. Same goes for Dynamics and a few other Power Apps and stuff. It can also be embedded within custom applications, but there are licensing implications to that in some cases, most cases. Yeah, and you can get the full sort of functionality here, or you can open it in the service from here directly as well. One thing we use it for, just as internally, is to embed it as we have a sort of calendar report for annual leave. So that's embedded in our sort of SharePoint. So that's pulling from a couple of different data sources to sort of match together all our sort of planned annual leave data. So it's front and center in one place, embedded in SharePoint. So anytime someone goes onto our SharePoint site, they can say, oh, such and such is off tomorrow, or filter that by team, by manager, whatever, slice and dice it whatever way you want. Licensing is, as I'm sure it's a topic everyone loves. Free Power BI, what you can do for free is essentially the full Power BI desktop functionality. So this custom application, or this application here, you can design your reports whatever way you want, start from scratch, start importing your data, all the rest of it. And then you can publish to your own personal workspace. So as part of the service, as part of the Power BI service, you have your own workspace. So your own workspace is exclusive to you. You can share out from it, but not from the free license. So basically, with the free license, you're very much limited in terms of your collaboration. You can share the Power BI desktop file, and other people can run your report locally, but really it's not ideal. You get the report is a lot more responsive and performance is a lot better in the service, Power BI service, when it's running on Microsoft servers rather than it's running on your laptop or whatever. Power BI Pro is sort of the step up from that, which is typically what 95% of people would use. Certainly small and medium businesses. So that allows you to basically do everything I've showed you today, whether that be row level security, refreshing, embedding across in Teams or across Office, sharing data sets with other Pro users. So one thing to note is if you have 10 users, they all need to consume reports and collaborate on those reports. All of them each need Pro licenses, and they're approximately, don't hold me to it, but it's approximately $750 per license per user per month. There are also premium SKUs. So as I say, they're more geared towards the enterprise environment, and they're extortionately expensive, starting at about £750 per month, although they do apply to a whole tenancy. It's generally cost prohibitive for small medium businesses, because the costs can quickly rack up because you're paying essentially for dedicated capacity on Microsoft's Azure services or servers. But you also get the more benefits of that. You get some benefits of that, more storage, PageNet reports, AI analytics, various other things. But as I say, the cost can get astronomical very, very quickly. And, you know, there are certain SKUs that are, you know, thousands of pounds per month. So that's largely what all I have for you. I'm just going to just quickly run through how we use Power BI, and then I'll maybe get to your questions or any questions you have. So if you get any any questions now, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll get to them in a wee minute. So just in terms of how we use it, I've obviously had to redact these screenshots. I would love to show them to you, but GDPR nightmare. So I'm just going to give you a couple of screenshots of how we use Power BI. So we use it for essentially all of our invoicing, opportunities, support tickets, projects, analysis and all of it, as well as analysis on third-party systems that we, or third-party software that we supply. So here, this is support tickets for, as good as all these fancy visualizations are, sometimes you just can't beat a good matrix. So here I have support tickets that can be broken down by a specific company or by a specific agreement or by a ticket owner or whatever measure or whatever metric you want to filter on. So I can quickly see at a glance, conditionally formatted to say, I can say, oh, SharePoint Online, there were 16 support tickets, and that corresponded to 24 hours for the ROE Solutions support team. So if I was to right click on this SharePoint Online cell, I could then drill through that and get context relevant information for those tickets. So down here I have the creation date, the ID, the summary, owner name, the ticket contact, the priority, and then the actual hours on the individual tickets. So here you can see this was 24 hours, but 9 of that, and then a further 6 down at the bottom here. The bulk of that is made up of 2 tickets. So those tickets were obviously tricky and quite complex to resolve. So this, you can easily then drill down into your data and sort of make a decision on what the issue is, or maybe this particular report is used quite a lot by our I've forgotten this job title, customer relationship management or manager, Peter, who some of you may be familiar with, and you may see sort of screenshots I'm sure he sends you out for your various own metrics. So if I go on here, so this is the one on the left here is, so we fill in timesheets for all our hours worked. So each of those hours worked, or each of those time entries correspond to a work type. So some of those work types are billable, some of them are not. Admin, annual leave, it's all accounted for. So here this is my 2-person team, myself and Una, our timesheets essentially. So some of these, so maybe I can't remember what blacked out the work types, but some of these correspond to billable hours, some of them not billable hours. You can sort of get insights on that, you know, if you wanted to evaluate your employees' performance and all the rest of it. Over on the right hand side here, I have a visualization for engineers lifting tickets. So again, this is just the split of subtypes of tickets and who's lifting them. And I totally haven't filtered this in a way that makes myself look good. So SharePoint tickets, bulk of them going to me, Dynamics split between myself and Una, C Drive, myself, etc., etc. You can sort of get the idea. This one is a sort of custom visual, so you have options for sort of custom visuals as well. So this is a Python script that generates this visual. It's not as interactive, but it can be filtered much the same. So this particular one is showing ticket creation dates for time of day and day of the week. So I can say, you know, 9 AM Monday, there being between 9 AM and 10 AM on Monday, there being 362 support tickets logged. I can't remember what the specific date range filter was on this. But then I can filter that by company or by agreement or whatever. So if a client comes and says, who's logging my tickets, when are they logging them, etc., etc., can easily report on that. And you can sort of see, generally speaking, the Monday is the worst by far. So Monday, I think, is the highest number on every individual hour window, apart from maybe 12 o'clock. Yeah, and sort of decreases throughout the week. So I can probably information that managers would know anyway. It's quieter on a Friday afternoon, but it's good to be able to put sort of statistical backing to that sort of. So if someone requested annual leave on a Friday afternoon, not really a big deal. Someone requested it on Monday, would need to make sure there was sufficient cover. So SLAs etc. can be met. This one is ticket response and resolve time. So this is myself, Una, and Eve. So it's filtered the last couple of months. I can't really remember. So I've got number of tickets closed, total average response hours, tickets closed less than 24 hours, closed less than 48 hours. So 66% across the three of us. 66% of the tickets closed within 24 hours and 77% of them closed within 48 hours. And then obviously that can be filtered down to just myself. And you can get my individual metrics for hours worked, priority, response time, all the rest of it. This last one I have is an example of Bitdefender, which is antivirus some of you may be using. So we have various third-party software that we sort of provide or sell, and that's all installed on machines, and it's all managed from a central sort of portal. So the portal, you might find the problem sort of that we're having was a lot of these portals, they all have their individual portals, whatever these services are, and when it comes to reporting, you need to go into maybe 5 or 6 different portals to sort of get the data out, essentially. So what Power BI does for us is put it all in one place. So this one in particular one is for Bitdefender, so I can quickly see, filter by company, how many people have active licenses, expired licenses, pending authorization, broken down the machine type, computer, virtual machine, servers, another one sometimes, product versions, so I can see exactly which product version each machine is running. So I can say, if I was to say like this particular product version here had some flaw in it, I could then click on that, and then I would instantly filter all of the devices, companies, IPs of those devices, so I could then work to upgrade those to the most recent version. We use a few others. So this all sort of connects through Bitdefender's sort of API. So it's sort of a web-based REST API. So this refreshes multiple times a day as well. So it's always up to date, and it saves our accounts department going into like 20 different portals to, as I say, find out what they should be billing and stuff. So it's really just about increasing efficiency and having one go-to place for all your reporting. Okay, so that's all I really have. I can't believe that was so close to an hour as scheduled. So I'm just going to look at the sort of Q&A and have a wee nosy. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in. And I'll have a wee look. Yeah, so I'm not awfully familiar with. I'll just publish this question. I'm not too familiar with SSAS reporting, honestly. My only experience with it is through Dynamics and the reporting they do. The paginated reports is more the which is part of the premium SKU, is more the way that is typically replicated. Power BI is really it's not really it's kind of a replacement, but not really also, if that makes sense. Not entirely sure what you mean by denormalize your data. If you could specify, hopefully be able to help.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining this morning, and I hope you found it beneficial. If you would like to talk to Michael or your account manager about your business specifically and how Power BI could work with it, please drop us a line and we can set up some one-on-one sessions. So unless anyone has any more questions, thanks for attending. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions. I'll just put my email back up there if you want to make a note of it, or alternatively just hello@leaf-it.com or your account manager.